Welcome to the Painting Coach, and today I'm very excited to be painting one of the brand new Lord of the Rings miniatures from Games Workshop. A huge shout out to them for sending me the brand new War of the Rohirrim Battle of Edoras box set. I'm so excited about this. I absolutely love Lord of the Rings, and I'm going to be showing you how to paint your Rohan soldiers by showing you how to paint the foot version of Haleth, Prince of Rohan. So without any further ado, let's get painting. To start off, I've primed Haleth using Chaos Black spray. Any black spray will be fine. We'll paint the silver metallics first, and the colour I'm using for this is dark aluminium. Now, if you haven't got this, you can use lead belcher, you can use Surcoat silver if that's what you've got. Generally, we're just looking for a dark silver colour. Now, there's lots of bits of silver across Haleth and across all the Rohirrim. So you're looking for things like the armour plates, the swords, the chainmail, and on Haleth, his helmet as well. You can afford to be a little bit messy at this point because it's the first colour we're putting down. Next up, we'll paint all of the brown leather parts, and the colour I'm going to use for this is Dryad Bark, which is a nice desaturated brown colour. You need to be very careful on this stage not to spill it onto any of the silver metallics you've already done, and this can be a little bit tricky, particularly around some of those horse motifs on the chest armour, so just take your time. If you do make any mistakes, you can always go back in and use some of that dark aluminium just to tidy it up a little bit. Before we shade everything, I just want to give the cloak a base coat as well, and the colour I'm using for this is Caliban Green. Now, the Caliban Green will take 2 coats to cover, so make sure you put it on nice and thin. The other thing to just be cautious of is to not spill it across any bits you've already got blocked in, such as the metallics or the brown leather parts. Once all those elements are dry, we're going to wash all of the model, and the colour I'm going to use for this is Nuln Oil. Now, this is a fairly straightforward step. You just want to wash this all over the model, but don't let it settle too heavily in the recesses, so just keep an eye on it and make sure you don't get too much of a heavy pool. Now, across the silver and the leather, this is easy enough and straightforward. For the cloak, we just want to focus it into those deepest recesses to get some nice shading. When it's completely dry, it's time to start the highlighting process, and first off we're going to do all the leather. So we're going back to Dryad Bark for this, and we're looking to pick out all of those parts that are facing upwards that are going to catch the most light. Around the midriff, we've got some interesting shapes on the leather. If you look at the box art, you can see that they're darker towards the bottom and lighter towards the top. So I'm just going to simulate this a little bit by stippling some Dryad Bark in there. For the rest of it, I'm looking to drag my brush along the shape of the model because this gives me a nice crisp highlight. If you make any mistakes, you can just take a little bit of Nuln Oil and shade it back down. It's a nice and easy step. Continuing that highlight process, we're going to go on to Gorthor Brown. Now with the Gorthor Brown, this is a lighter colour again, but again it's quite desaturated. And generally what we're looking to do with this is catch those sharp edges by only having a little bit on our brush, a really good point, and dragging it across the sharp areas of the plastic. This gives you a nice crisp highlight. Where you can't do this, you'll just have to be very careful in terms of how you apply the paint. But again, if you do make mistakes, remember we can always use the previous colours to tidy it up. The final highlight on the brown armour is going to be with a 50-50 mix of Karak Stone and Gorthor Brown. So this lightens it up quite significantly. Generally, what we're looking to do here is hit all of those areas that are going to catch the most light, particularly the sharp edges and corners of all the armour. Again, if you're not sure how this highlight works, it's better to put less on, then go back and add some more after you've had a little check of some of the box art, because this is a much lighter stage, it can get out of hand. We'll highlight all of the silver next, and the colour I'm going to use for this is Chrome from Vallejo Model Air. Now this is a very bright silver, it's also quite a powerful silver in terms of how it goes down, it covers very well. So where we've got those sharp edges, we want to drag the brush along them, making sure we haven't got too much paint. This is going to give us a nice crisp highlight. For the chainmail, make sure you haven't got too much on your brush, just drag it gently across a paper towel for instance, and then drag it across the chainmail. This is essentially a dry brush, but it's a very controlled dry brush. We're not being very aggressive, so you can use your normal brush for this if you want. For the armour plates on the chest and on the arms, we're just looking to fill in, leaving a bit of a dark colour in those recesses so that the armour really does pop. For the cloak, we just need to tidy it up a little bit. So I'm going to take some Caliban Green and just paint over any spillages, or if you do have an area where the black has pooled too much, you can just paint over that to blend it back in a little bit. The first highlight on the cloak is a 50-50 mix of Caliban Green and Castellan Green. Now, Castellan Green is a lighter but more desaturated green than Caliban Green. So this is going to give you some really nice saturated recesses and a slightly more desaturated highlight on the cloak, which looks really effective. So just paint this over the majority of the cloak, leaving the darker colours in the recesses. If you do go too far, you can always use a little bit of Caliban Green just to tidy up the edge. Now we're on to pure Castellan Green, and you can really see here the difference in the colour of the green. As it dries, you're going to get a really, really nice bit of differentiation between the folds and the raised creases. So with this, again, we're looking to paint mainly just those raised folds. If you do make a mistake, use the previous colour to tidy it up. But we're looking to keep those lines a little bit thinner and only focused on the raised parts as well. It's also really easy to drag this along the sharp part of the cloak to get a nice edge highlight on there as well. The final highlight I'm going to pop on the cloak is with Straken Green. Now, this is, again, a much lighter green. Again, it's fairly desaturated. So it just simulates the kind of the cloth colour that you see on the Rohirrim. And essentially what we're looking to do is paint this inside the Castellan Green from the previous stage. So make sure you've thinned it down a bit. You haven't got too much on your brush and you've got a good point. And then you can go in and paint some really nice thin lines inside that Castellan Green just to get that final highlight on the cloak. For the red leather on the belt and for the accent across the brow of the helmet, I'm going to base all of that using Khorne Red. This is a nice simple stage. The only thing you need to do is be careful of getting this onto any of the parts you've already finished. We'll very quickly wash that with some Nuln Oil. Now, you don't need too much of this at all, and this is a very quick step. To boost the colour on that leather, we're going to go back to Khorne Red, and we're looking to paint the entirety of it really, just leaving the Nuln Oil in the recesses. Again, this is a fairly easy and straightforward step. Next, we'll take some Wazdakka Red, and with this, we're looking to highlight the edges of the leather. So where you can, just drag the brush along the sharp shape of the belt, and you'll get that nice crisp highlight. When it comes to having the paint on your brush, make sure you haven't got too much and you've got a really good tip on there. For the accent colour across the helmet, we're just looking to catch those edges and also paint part of the leather just to help it pop. We'll finish the highlighting of the red using some Squig Orange. Now, these colour combos are going to give you a little bit of a desaturated red colour, which I think works nicely along with the rest of the armour. For this, we're looking just for the extreme edges. So again, not too much on your brush, drag it along the shape of the model and you'll get those nice crisp highlights. I'm going to paint the boots and the undersuit in black. So if you haven't already, take some Abaddon Black, just tidy up any mistakes you might have made. And then take some Eshin Grey and use this to highlight the boots. Focus on those areas facing upwards that are going to catch the most light. And you can also use it on the gloves and the trousers as well. Just taking your time and just following the shape of the fingers that are sculpted onto the model. To finish highlighting the black, we're going to take some Dawnstone, and essentially what we're looking to do here is paint this inside the Eshin Grey of the previous stage. So again, make sure you haven't got too much on your brush and you've got a really good point. There's not going to be too many opportunities to drag your brush along the edge to get a nice crisp highlight here, so you will just need to practice being very, very careful applying this. We'll base up all of the gold accents next, such as the brooches holding on the cloak and also the hilt of the sword and some other detail on the scabbard as well. The colour I'm using for this is Dragon's Gold from Two Thin Coats. If you haven't got this, Retributor armour is absolutely fine. When that's dry, I'm going to shade all of the gold using Reikland Fleshshade. Now, I'm not using a huge amount of this here. I'm not letting it pool. I just want it to give that gold a little bit of a reddy feel. And this is going to make it much warmer in comparison to the silver metal, for example. To highlight the gold, I'm going to take some Glistening Gold, again from Two Thin Coats, but if you've got Liberator Gold from Citadel, that's absolutely fine. What I'm looking to do here is focus on the parts of the model that are facing upwards and catching the light, and we just want to drag this along the shape if we can to get the nice crisp highlight. The last thing to do is to paint the face, and this is a little more difficult, and perhaps I should have done it first, but I wasn't confident I wouldn't make a mess with the silver metallics, so I figured it's easier to fix the silver metallics than it is to fix the flesh. To that end, I'm taking some Cadian Fleshtone and painting this all over the face inside the helmet. Now this does take 2, maybe 3 coats, so just take your time and be patient because you are painting a very small surface area. When that's dry, take a little bit of Reikland Fleshshade and just wash this all over the face. It'll work its way into those recesses such as the eye sockets around the nose and the mouth, and it should also work its way down the side of the protective plates of the helmet too. To start building that flesh colour up, go back to Cadian Fleshtone and just start to highlight. Now you'll notice there's very little to actually highlight here. So we're focusing on things like the chin, the bits of the nose that stick out under the nose protector, and predominantly we're looking at the cheekbones just by the eye sockets. We'll continue lightening the face using some Kislev Flesh. Now again, with the Kislev Flesh, you're looking to paint this inside the Cadian Fleshtone of the previous stage. So because this is so small, it's quite difficult to demonstrate it properly on camera. So just bear with me as I do this. But essentially you're looking at, again, the cheekbones around the eye sockets, a little bit of nose and the chin. The final bit of highlight, which is just to add some more brightness in there, is with Flayed One Flesh. Again, we're focusing on the chin and the cheekbones, and this just helps that face stand out a little bit under all of the armour. And there we have it. Prince Haleth on foot is done and ready to defend the realms of Rohan from the Northern Wildmen. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed painting it and can't wait to paint the rest of the box. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to check out all of my other content and leave a like and a comment down below. I'll see you next time.